Cool. So we are on number 30 now. We've made it this far. It's been a journey. Lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of screw ups, lots of down. No. Hey, that's just part of the learning process. If it weren't for screw ups, we wouldn't evolve or progress in this quest one bit. So anyway, I have pulled in the sort of percussive rhythmic layer from the last sketch. I'm going to use that as a jumping off point. I've got this this kind of tone coming out of there that I kind of want to mess with a little bit. Or maybe we just want to change the whole thing up altogether. We definitely notch out some of those resonant tones coming through. And what about this tempo? For experimental, not half terrible. I mean, we could obviously add, a dozen more types of sounds like that. Excuse me, let me get this little tool open. Make sure my levels are okay. Pull this down a little bit. Instead of the reverb on the master, I'll just, I'm going to group this and route the group tough. I'm going to put the tough group through this effects MIDI rack track. So we got two copies of it basically happening, which I'm going to see if, these are exact replica copies. So if we flip, yeah, we get total cancellation. So, okay, that's interesting to note. Perfect summing, I guess. There's a lot of debate going on for a while out there of Ableton just doesn't sound as good as other DAWs. It just sounds thin, and then a bunch of people jumped to it and did some tests where they, took wave files and flipped them on each track, and they're like, well, the summing engine is exact. It's all very simple mathematics. So there wasn't anything different going on. In terms of coloration, there actually wasn't any coloration. And I think that the truth is some other DAWs a DAW really shouldn't add color. And of course, there's pan laws. Some panning is affected differently. Like I know Logic has a different panning type of, and they may fix that in this Ableton. I haven't really looked into that since. But I know the Harrison mix bus does definitely add color. It is made to be a saturated, analog type of mixer. Okay, get off on those tangents. I really should just be focusing. It is first thing in the morning, and honestly, focusing is not my forte first thing in the morning. Some people do really good with that kind of thing first thing in the morning, but not I. Let's see what we have going on with notes. Yes, we had this whole slew of notes. So after playing with this tempo, I was hearing this idea of this pulse slowing down and speeding up, but sort of arbitrarily, and having several tracks that do that. So let's delete this. We want this on all the time. I really wish we could go over a second. I guess a max for live patch might be in order to get something like that. And I feel like this auto filter could be, you might want to move this to its own track just to separate things out. Let's put the limiter here. And of course we don't have anything going through the limiter, so we just need maybe the slightest of crackles, which will affect, or not. We should turn the wet and dry up. Okay, and what I'm hearing here is this reduction is kind of that's why we had that limiter there. I see. So we want a limiter here, and this will prevent those overdrives. Maybe pull this down in volume a little bit. So let's see what happens when we duplicate this. And pull this rate down. Nice, we're gonna get these polyrhythmic and let's pull the pitch up on that. And we've got this automation here. I think we want to keep that one a little lower. Kind of like two metal tubes being struck at the same time. I think we'll just leave the redux on this one here. It adds a nice bit of noise. In fact, maybe I'll pull it off and put it into this bass. I think I liked it better here. It adds a bit of a lo-fi kind of noise layer. Classic downsampling sound. It's a bit cliche, a bit, you know, overdone for a while. I mean, there's ways to use it, I think, that where it's not as noticeable, and that goes with all of these effects. And that's just my opinion. I think avoiding those atypical sonic cliches where at all possible. I mean, sure, go ahead and put some bird sounds in your mix, you know, be like that. That's a real classic move. I personally will not ever be doing that again. I hear bird tweet sounds in so many mixes, and I get it, birds, like the ultimate songsters, you know, we got to pay homage, but it's like a bit overdone. It's a bit cliche anymore, if you ask me. I just hear so much of it that I personally want to avoid it. But we all have to make those decisions for ourselves. What defines cliche? And obviously, you know, after you listen to a million hours of a million different albums like I've done, and, you know, not always a good thing listening in that way, that sort of scholastic listening, because you don't oftentimes fully absorb certain things. You just, it's like reading a book and then moving on to the next one, you know, and you almost don't stew with things long enough to really so let certain things sink in. But the positive, of course, is you do get a good sense of like what is going on in the world, in the zeitgeist. And yeah, bird chirp sounds, so many of them. maybe this flanger is a little bit heavy-handed in terms of its metallic qualities, which is, it's nice to have that shine sometimes. Give things that clean, bright, smooth, surfaced sound. It all just depends on where it is in the mix. This bass is whoops. Let's try this. Oops, I did not mean to record anything. I guess this white solid one is it's got different things going on the right and left channel, and so this one must be mono. It almost sounds like we've got a bit of a stereo. Yeah, interesting stereo thing happening there. This kind of reminds me a bit of some of the stuff I've heard come out of some modular rigs. Which I know that sound is incredibly popular these days. And I do like a lot of aspects of what's going on in the modular scene. I'm no aficionado of that music, but I do really like the patch-based composition, which is kind of what a lot of these sketches have been. We've got, you know, a series of tracks. You know, you can almost consider these modules in a way, and they all just kind of run. And if you can create a series of clips that all work together and can sound interesting for 5 minutes without having to do a whole lot of work along the way, then, you know, it's very similar, I guess, in style and effect to the patch-based composition, which is, it's almost set it and forget it. I've seen modular artists live who did that, where they would just have a patch set up and they would just tweak a few knobs every, you know, so often, but let the patch itself do all the talking, which is fascinating to me. I mean, if the patch is set up right, it sounds really cool that way. And then I've seen other guys who do, and ladies, more of like a hands-on approach where they're, you know, flipping out patch cables and doing a lot more manipulating of the patch live, which to me it's of course fun to watch somebody doing a really active thing on the stage there. I personally, I might be more of the autechre style of, you know, live show type of, don't look at me, look at my sound. I'd love to just turn the lights off, which is usually never an option, but so in that case I'm always trying to get a video going and let people watch that and listen to the sound and connect the two and not pay attention to me. Even if I have a guitar, or, you know, I'd rather just not be the spectacle. Then there's been some shows where, you know, venue dependent, you know, you're right below the screen and you kind of have to be a part of the spectacle. So it's unavoidable. But if I had my way, you know, if I was a big named artist and could have my way, hilarious, I would have the lights be all off with a screen, and I would be mostly behind that screen and or off to the side watching the screen, or better yet, behind the screen with like a sort of see-through type of. I saw 9 Inch Nails do that one time. I'm gonna start automating some of this. And you could sort of see the band behind there, but then you had projections on this like scrim, this halfway see-through stuff. And so you mostly saw the projections, but then the band was just like translucent behind it. And that was really cool looking. But truth is, I don't really play live these days much anymore, especially not with this COVID thing. I'm sure this will end, and maybe I'll get back to doing some live shows, but it's not really my thing right now. There's much funner things to do, if you ask me. And playing live can be quite stressful, I think. But also fun too if there's a good video to do a soundtrack along to. Then in a good sound system and a good venue, then it does. The work is somewhat justified because Lord knows it doesn't pay anything. I've rarely had shows that actually paid a decent amount, and usually those were overseas where they actually have great governments that put money into the arts and will pay for foreigners to travel there, and you don't see that much these days, or even before the COVID thing. It was let's get a little more volume on this. Sounds a bit. Wow, I think I just had too much coffee this morning. I am just talking out my face hole. Some days it's like that, and it's good to exercise those vocal cords. Unless you're talking smack, it's a good thing. Definitely getting some strange rhythmic experimental vibes. I am really looking forward to Live 11, to being able to replace this reverb with the new convolution that they're going to have. It's going to be dedicated and built in. Not like that Max for Live convolution reverb that is quite clunky. I don't know how many times I've had projects crash on open, and then when I remove the convolution from the project, of course, it opens just fine. And of course, those projects had like 5 to 10 different instances of a convolution patch, so maybe that has something to do with it. I feel like it's a real inefficient Max for Live patch, so it'll be great to have actually a decent sounding reverb for once in Ableton. Now, 10 did introduce echo, and there's some nice. This reverb doesn't have very many features, but it does sound decent. Let's just go ahead and get rid of that, and so let's just have an echo in there. Get some fun old school delay type sounds. I mean, it does sound pretty decent overall. Although I'm more of a fan of the not repitch, the fade style delay. Let's go ahead and let's give some more decay on that. And I haven't really played with these much. Interesting. That's kind of fun. Little built-in noise there. Probably just some samples. Actually, I do believe it is a sample I think I found in the Ableton folder, the install folder, where there are samples for this. And there's 2 different ones you can morph between. And it's like, well, at that point I might as well just bring in my own samples, but it's convenient, to have it right in there. Definitely losing some. Yeah, I think this bit reduction is sounding a bit heavy-handed, but if we put a wet and dry on it, we can just have a little bit of it come through. Now, let me play with the That's kind of silly there. I really wish our rate would go higher here. I just need to build all my own effects in Max for Live. Maybe not let it go so far up the frequency ladder. Yeah, I need to for sure add this in. And I realize, oh, we have a rack that I made, and I always forget sometimes that, you know, we have a grain delay with a wet and dry already. Well, I had already automated this one. Hard to think of everything in the moment. Let's go ahead and pull this down a little bit. Make sure my levels are okay. Sometimes I think the music gets a little hot, and okay, cool. As long as this is touching right there at the green, and then my vocals are just right skirting the yellow-red line, I think everything usually sounds okay that way. OBS, an amazing free application for screen recording, video capturing, as they say, but definitely a complicated beast that I am still grappling with. Learning curves. But hey, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. All right, let's just keep going. Let's get some. Actually, let me just keep duplicating these. Let me pull this amount down. I feel like it's still kind of going up too high there. Pull this flanger out. And let's get rid of some of that reverb there. And I want to go ahead and pull this in. Getting a lot of strange little, that grain delay, strange little echoes. Now, if we make this a noise, do we hear anything? Do we get anything fun there? Kind of buggy, like an insect. And this thing definitely can, both of these can have some frequency modulation. And I think since we were, oh no, we still have this reduction here. Maybe we'll just drop this right before that. So that's really the only reason why we wanted that in there, was for the prevent overloads. Kind of a boring piece, you know, but hey, the more boring, the more important it is, right? So that they say. The more tedious, the more interesting it is, or the more difficult of a challenge it is, the more important it is. I think I mentioned that in some other sketch. My theories on that. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's the struggle that makes you stronger. So, if it's music that makes you struggle, it's actually good for you. It's going to build up that brain muscle somehow. I don't know. Sometimes, you know, you listen to music, you don't really want it to be work. Sometimes you do. I know some people who they don't want to listen to music unless it's work. Difficult, challenging. You know, 4 hours of the exact same tone or whatever. It's a fine line between just lazy and dull, uninspired, unmoving music and cool and interesting and innovative and I think I'm hearing a tremolo. As I hear things that kind of repeat a little too incessantly, I often think of the tremolo with a really low rate to break up this sort of monotony, which sometimes you want a little of that monotony throughout a piece, and other times you don't. All a matter of personal preference, of course, but I'm more in the camp of more variations throughout, and I guess that is the challenge that I like as an artist, but also to give to listeners something that changes a lot. And for some listeners, that can be just too much to handle. Some people just really want music that just doesn't change a lot. I guess that's sort of one of the tenets of that whole drone scene is music that really just takes its sweet ass time and doesn't really change a lot, and that's okay for that purpose. Okay, we'll come back to all this. Actually, no, no, we won't. We'll just throw a bunch of effects on here and call it a day, as we've done so many times. All right, now I am hearing more reverb, and I'm curious if we put the reverb here, we'll get like a reverb running through this grain delay, which will have its own interesting sound to it, its own strange magic. All right, I had this idea to bring in our feedback tonal generator. And that we built one of the last sketches, which has a really interesting array of gates pulling from, you know, in a loop, basically. And this one is pulling from, I think it's 2 or the end of 2. So, and then, so we got ourselves some interesting feedback happening. We could also do something really potentially stupid and pull from this effects track here and inject straight into our feedback rack. Not sure if that's feedback effects. Tough effects. Maybe I'll put this over here. Contextually, it makes a little more sense, I suppose. And some of these characters to let us know this is running into this. So what we definitely need to automate some stuff inside this feedback. I think originally we had this vinyl distortion creating some sound for our feedback channel, but I think instead I want this that's pulling audio from here to be our source. we could group all this into some uber tough. I don't think we need this return now that I'm looking at it. And move this echo to sort of cover the whole thing. Of course, we can't have any kind of clip automation here. I was thinking maybe we want to automate some stuff inside this effect. All right, well, first let's get first let's automate these knobs. Sure. Okay. Somehow this and this get out of sync. I don't really know what causes that yet. It's a complicated beast we have going on here with our little template, I suppose if you could call this. Let's just go ahead and put something else going on in these straight line zones. All right. And this one manually do. A lot of that atypical resonator sound we have coming through is because we have just a straight unchanging note. Cool, and I think we could put a modulation to just slowly, over a long period of time, fade down. Definitely gotta automate the snot out of this one. Although I think I need to move it around inside of the effects chain. Now that I'm hearing it. Also, I feel like I need to automate these rates also. This could just get too crazy. Might have to remember, keep an ear out for this. Definitely almost like this sort of breakdown zone when everything gets kind of weird and experimental, and you know, we could have another set of clips here where we've got like different automations inside of those, so we have different states. We have a more, we call this one straight and this one weird, and the straight one does not have any of this. It's just a straight, and add some automation in there to make it, yeah, a little bit like it was originally. This is almost sounding a little too repetitive for my taste. Yeah, let's have a straight and a weird. And the weird one, just like the other, will have do like that arpeggiator when it's set to some high frequencies, because it almost sounds a bit like a weird oscillator. It seems like for this piece, we don't really need to be locking stuff too much to the tempo. I mean, we could throw a kick drum in there, you know, we could get really atypical. Call this straight. And weird. Just like the other ones, I'll go ahead and still am hearing on this click rhythm something else, something, I don't know what. Maybe we need more. It's all very just like kind of these waves. I feel like I'm gonna get seasick listening to this for too long. And we could go through all of these and have like a straight and a weird version. We can make as many versions down the line as we want, each with different automations and modulations. You could easily just make a whole series of movements and songs just with nothing but clips. I mean, stuff can get really complicated if you wanted to. And you could have follow actions, you know, things can get incredibly interesting and strange. And when Ableton 11 comes out, I think it's going to be even more fascinating when you have this new follow action. It's not in here, of course, but jump is a new one, and that's going to allow you to just set the number of a clip. So you're going to have a group of clips here with their own follow actions, and maybe one in there is set to jump, and you can have it set to jump to another set of clips. And then that one, just maybe one of those clips in there, going to be set to jump back to this, you know, so you can have a whole series of jumping from groups. And each group can control different things. You know, some of them could have all different settings here and all different settings, however you want to set it up. And with the whole rack preset thing, it's just, you know, gonna be really insane. Groups of clips being able to fire off rack presets of like a whole different setups. So really, you know, you'll be able to take just like a few tracks like this and probably, you know, get really intense with it. Insert scene. Wow, this is sounding crazy and spooky and like a creature, a synth creature. So what happens if we do put some percussion in there? I mean, not that this stuff isn't this straight one, we still need to modulate this, I think, slowly modulate the delay. Time 39. Oh, we're getting close. I might be done here in just a little bit. Don't need to push things too far. let's try a kick with an arpeggiator instead of drawing out each note. There's so many ways to make beats and rhythms. You can make entire beats just playing around with, you know, one note, and then we could split this note into mini notes, and then have a drum rack. Where do we want our drum rack? Gotcha. And then looks like D3. Okay, so we set this, maybe we'll set this to C. Yeah, so we just pick some random. Okay, so we have C3, and it is firing on C3, just how we want it. All right, cool. And now we can split these. You see, we've got notes happening on all of these. And as long as we have an arpeggiator on each one, we can split those notes out. Obviously, we're with our arpeggiator the same. Rude. The kick obviously needs a pitch down. That's a fascinating sound coming off of there. And yeah, modulate that. And pull this off the grid. Definitely got to automate this. As I'm dragging this around, I'm hearing some interesting ideas. All right, let's get that going there. Just some kind of weird industrial, almost techno-y kind of piece. But you know me, I can't sit still. I can't have a 4/4 just ruling a track. It's too boring. Bore, as I like to say. Let's cut and paste that in there, and just, we don't need so much extra, and let's clean that up. Now, if I turn this into a white noise, what do we get? All right, so yeah, just a little white noise every now and then. Let's try that out. Noise looped. Hi-hats out of the operator always just sound so kind of obnoxious right off the bat. And there are definitely ways to spruce them up. We could try a phaser. Add a bit of a metal Sounds like we've definitely got a metal. I need to get my little. Where did this go? Must have closed it accidentally earlier. Seem to be losing this one a lot. Let's delete that. We don't need that. So you can get a bit more of like a metal sound out of your noise hi-hat. Space is nice for some things, but it can be a little bit heavy-handed sometimes. And let's put this onto the beat. And we don't need the width. We'll keep it centered. Just for shits and giggles, let's. You can get some fascinating modulation type sounds with this loop set up. I say I'm almost done, and then, you know, get on a kick, and then it's just like another hour's worth of fooling around. That's the joy of doing this kind of thing. Yeah. Don't want this sustain automated for now, and I do want to try to automate this time. We haven't even tried to automate the rate on that arpeggiator for this, so we're already getting all kinds of weird rhythms and sounds. So link you and pull this over here. And it would be fascinating to have all these set up with LFOs, and have like a special type of LFO. So every time you load in the project, you get a slightly new set of settings. So it's different, you know, generative with each time you open it up. That would take a lot of LFOs to replace the automations that we're doing. But that's the only way to get truly generative stuff. These automations are kind of set in stone in a way. You know, you've got a timeline that they're basically following, and even if you unlink, it's still, you know, pretty repetitive depending on what section of the song you're in, or if there was a way to make, you know, the length change every time you open or push a button. You can get a slightly different length on all your automations. That would be a pretty cool feature. Yeah, maybe. Really wish we had some more functions with this reverb here. It's pretty basic, I guess. Maybe the ducking. I wonder if this ducking will do anything. Seems like it does affect the reverb. That's kind of nice. I feel like there's so much more we could do here with these effects. We've got this on straight, and now I feel like I'm getting bored of that. So let's put everything on weird. And of course, need a bit of a drum bus on this kick. Get a little more oomph. Probably want to automate this also. Automate and modulate. It's my favorite thing in the world to do. I wonder if we put this in here, into this group, what we get. Whole lot of nothing. Whole lot of weird, that's for sure. And that's because we're now running through the feedback effects. Which, I just now remembered that I wanted to try to move this around. I wish we could put that ducking effect right on here, and I guess we could use an envelope. Or just automate this to kind of run to the beat. Let's go down to an 1/8. And put in a few other that a little bit. All right, interesting. Now let's copy all this and see what happens when we paste it in here. Looks like we get something, and then we could duplicate some of this and stretch it out or squeeze it a little bit. Duplicate that. Let's just throw one in here for good measure. try to put some of that weird, whoops, automation in here. Let's just duplicate this and maybe play with stretching it a little bit. Stretch that, whoops, just a little bit. Well, some fascinating oddities happening every now and then. Now, pull this up. And let us, of course, leverage our nifty follow actions if we can. I'm like, why can't we? Yeah, maybe I'm just blind this morning. I like the legato setting on. Makes for some interesting effects, since it doesn't allow the clips to just restart each time they are played. Picks back up where it leaves off. Again, sounding like autechre or something. It's not hard, I think, to end up with that sound. They use Maximus P, and the timbres of their sound, of course, are very Maximus P. It kind of almost reminds me when I do use a lot of Max for Live audio effects, some of the sounds I get out of there almost just remind me a lot of autechre. But that's where it's good to, have a good arsenal of VST effects like these meldas. Oh my gosh. I'm always just curious what will sound like if we just drop in a nutty and just start hitting the of course some of these are real CPU hogs. This one isn't too bad, but you can get some interesting sort of watery, slurpy-ish, obviously, with this one. I love meldas. They have a really nice set of random features. Any plugins that have a randomizer, I'm mostly all about. That's another good one that I like to bust out that has this one. Yeah, oh, bit over the top, but for making some textures it can sometimes be really useful. I really need to get more plugins put on this laptop. It's been a long time coming. I haven't really updated it in a while. Yeah, this one can be a bit crazy, but sometimes you get these really interesting things happen from this random button. I wish we could automate this somehow, but cool. Yeah, and then yeah, there's some others like Tweakbench has a little randomizer button in there. Audiothing makes a bunch that I think all of theirs has a little randomized button, which is super useful. Of course, there's always Reactor God bless Reactor, and it's got a nice little randomize function in there that we can actually automate, and things get really weird at that point. Yeah, filterjam is by audiothing, and there's always a randomize button in all audiothing plugins. Kilohertz, that's a brand that makes some really awesome sounding plugins. Their multi-snap plugin is quite impressive and amazing, and they all have randomize buttons. Of course, now I want to take this and route it so that we can play with these effects. Let's sends only you and drop in a gate from Uber Tough. You'd think I could come up with some better titles, but obviously CPU cycles are going elsewhere in these sketches. Uber Tough effects. So let's just drag and drop all of these over here. Doesn't sound half bad without them. But obviously, you know, Ableton, all the effects, you get a certain sound, and so we want to utilize as much plugins and third-party stuff because you're going to get the most unique sound by combining a lot of different plugins by different brands. Each brand I've found has a certain tonal quality and signature. So if you can find the right recipe, right combination of plugins from different brands, it takes a lot of research, you know, which ones sound good when automated. Some, you know, sound great, but you can't really automate them because their knobs are all clicky. Let's speed this thing up. Okay, all right. So, luckily there is a lock random. That means when we hit the random button, it won't randomize. And let's go ahead and lock random here. One thing you can do, at least for a lot of these plugins that have the randomize features, so when we random, we see all these knobs moving, at least the ones we haven't locked. And we could, let's go ahead and make this like 16 length. And 3 for good measure. Okay. And we'll turn on that, and now I can start hitting the random button, and you can see these little red dots. We're recording the knob positions into lanes inside this clip, so that's pretty useful. I wish we could use our Max for Live patch that we built, and I think it was Sketch 6, where we could control the presets by automating. Because built in Ableton, you can't automate presets unless the plugin accepts MIDI program change messages. And gosh, I really love the sound of filterjam. Very subtle, subtle resonant. So now you can see they'll just jump on their own. And what we could do is we could go into each one and we could pull, you know, these each off of the grid, and that way we get slightly different, you know, variations and interactions of these knobs together. I'll go ahead and remove these. Definitely want to play with some more plugins later. At least, you know, if you don't have the plugin, it'll still sound okay when you pull this open. Now I'm, you know, having more crazy thoughts of pulling sound straight from this uber tough effects into our feedback loop, which is going straight back through, you know, our gain, so you get weird tonal. It sounds like just a robot monster crying out in the distance or something. We could push the gain. This is our autechre ripoff track. Well, there's so many of them are actually. It's a lot of fun to sometimes create or try to create music that sounds, you know, like some artist that is really interesting. It's not easy, but as you can see, we're just employing basic techniques here, and it kind of just ends up sounding like autechre or some other ilk artist. And you know, honestly, it just is what it is. I think that they spend a lot of time just kind of randomly adding things, a lot of LFOs and whatever their system entails, but that's how they got to these points also from another direction. But it's the same types of concepts. You know, you have arpeggiators that create rhythms, and then you make sure the rate is changing. You know, you put an LFO on everything, and eventually you're going to get some strange sounding beats like this. It's a good thing we have this limiter here. I think if we didn't, it would probably sound like garbage. Just way too loud. We go ahead and, we don't need that. I found that with some of these plugins, if you have them in line and they're not on, they still use a little bit of CPU to pass audio through them. So I guess depends on how many plugins you want to try to use. Wow. I could even hear another like little rhythm or melody with a rhythm, but for another day, maybe we'll springboard off of this piece next time and try that idea out then. But for now, it's like an hour and 7, pretty average for these sketches. Hope you enjoyed this, and as much as I did. Yeah, let me mess with some of this cheesy video. See if we could speed it up and get it to kind of match up with the rhythms a little more. Let me turn this trails off here. Here we go. Maybe a little too fast. Good output full screen. Good old Resolume. I gotta say, I'm really, I have a lot of fun with it. And 3D Studio Max, it's really easy to make pretty basic abstract type of polyagonal renderings, and you know, pull that into Resolume, and you can do further weirdness in editing. So that's kind of a combination I've been enjoying. Although not spending as much time in 3D Studio Max and Resolume as I'd like, but these sketches have definitely inspired some of that. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully my levels weren't too off. Not that anyone wants to hear me blather on and on and on, but hey, if nothing else, open up the project and you know, tweak it out, play with add your own automations in there, move effects around, move some of these tracks, you know, play with this feedback here, you know, just some fun things you would do to get some more mileage out of this. Well, until next time.